Doctor of Historian, economist Webster Tarpley's here. He's breaking down the royal wedding, and we're going to get into the real power of the British monarchy, the crown. These pretenders to the throne. The throne itself is a fraud, and what this modern spectacle is all about. Then we're getting into the birth certificate and Tarpley's view on that. We're getting into the economy, the wars, and we'll get to some of your phone calls. Dr. Bob Bowman is also coming up in studio. I've got them both here to be interviewed for a film, so we're killing two birds with one stone, and also doing radio interviews. Always great to have them. Okay, Webster, you were going through the build-up to World War I, World War II, the British orchestrating that, their eugenics, Nazi support. Let's continue.
All right, so Edward VII, if anybody is the architect of the catastrophe of the 20th century, Edward VII is right up there. He's at least a real contender. The question I think that your email question touched on is, what is the name of this family? Who are they, right, this royal family? Today they call themselves Windsor. They decided to call themselves Windsor in about 1916, 1917, when all of those millions of British getting killed in the First World War that Edward VII had set up. There was a huge anti-German hysteria in Britain. Up until that time, they'd been calling themselves the ruling house of Hanover, and they'd been going by that name since George I had come over, right, around 1710. But the real name of it is, you've also said, Saxe-Coburg-Gotha, or Sachsen-Coburg-Gotha, or Guelph. Guelph being the anglicized version of Welf, W-E-L-F, Die Welfen. That is what the House of Hanover used to call themselves. So this is the family that now call themselves Windsor. Prince Philip of again, a Greek-Danish branch of this family, is the guy who wants to come back as a virus. But the question was, after 1945, did they learn that Nazism was bad? Well, who was Prince Philip's best friend? His best friend was Prince Bernhard of Holland.
Another relative, another German princeling dispatched to fertilize Queen Beatrix, the princess. And expanding on that, for those that are not aware of this, when I say they began what is Nazism, that was only one branch of the eugenics movement that they heavily financed starting in the 1850s through Galton. This is all mainline history.
In the case of Philip, his best friend, lifelong friend, was Prince Bernhard of Holland, and that, of course, is the founder of the Bilderberger Group. In a way, you could say the Bilderberger Group, the royal patrons of that Bilderberger phenomenon, were Prince Philip and are Prince Philip still, and now the late Prince Bernhard. What's with Prince Bernhard? He was a minor, not very wealthy German nobleman, not even a prince. I think he was the ruler, maybe the Duke or the Count of Detmold Lippe for sure. And he married the House of Orange, which is either they're the richest in the world or the Windsors. It's between Orange and Windsor. And
that's a big state secret. They're so powerful, they successfully have had the AP agree to never photograph them even in public.
All right. Bernhard had been, when he had been in the university in Berlin in the late 1920s, he had joined the Nazi stormtroopers. He was a brown shirt. He was a member of the SA, the Sturmabteilung. But then it was realized, of course, that he was on his way to.
So he left Germany, ran back, and as the German planes are invading, he does photo op shooting at them.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Before he did that, he went from the SA brown shirt stormtroopers to the SS black shirt elite, and not just the
who pledged total fealty to Adolf Hitler.
And he was a member of the Reiter SS. In other words, there was a subdivision of the SS, the elite of the elite, la crème de la crème, where in order to get into that one, you had to be a noble. So he was a key figure in that. Then when he married Princess of Orange there, the future queen, then Juliana, I guess it was, he had to basically resign from all of his Nazi party offices. So Prince Philip never learned not to be friendly with Nazis. He was a friend of Prince Bernhard all his life. It just never ended.
And he makes constant statements on TV. He'll go, he's obsessed and obsessive compulsive. If he sees a light bulb that's burnt out in a palace, he publicly says, there must be blacks working in here.
Now, his racism, very good point. The question of Lady Diana about 12 years ago, right? Princess Diana, Lady Diana Spencer, Princess Diana. She had married Charles, of course, and Charles was an adulterer. He had Camilla Parker Bowles on the side. It's typical of the family. His brother, his younger brother, Prince Andrew, known as Randy Andy, was also a rake, an adulterer.
Well, I tell you, Camilla Parker Bowles, she looked like roadkill 50 years ago.
Today she was wearing a champagne dress, which I guess has something to do with the fact that whenever you pick up the Globe in these supermarket tabloids, it's always that she's drunk again and having a drunken fit. But Princess Diana, after having divorced Prince Charles, right, since her life with him was unbearable, she was going to marry Dodi Fayed. Now, Dodi Fayed, of course, this is the son of Al Fayed, who had bought this Harrods department store in London, except for about 10 or 15 years, there was a huge feud between Al Fayed, I guess of Egypt, and Tiny Rowland. And Tiny Rowland was a guy who worked with and for the British royal family. So there had been a kind of a conflict between Al Fayed and the royal family through Tiny Rowland. At the point that Princess Diana was going to marry Dodi Fayed, she was going to convert to Islam. So you would have had a situation, including today, if gone otherwise, if she had lived, you would have had the Queen Mother of England, or Queen of England, depending. Well, of course, by the time she converted, she wouldn't have been queen. But the Queen Mother, for sure, she would have remained, would have been a Muslim. And this would have happened about 1999, 2000, 2001.
The word is she was pregnant.
Just in time for 9/11, we would have had the whole clash of civilization strategy completely negated because the Queen Mother of England is a Muslim. So this was unacceptable. And this was a kind of her death.
And this, of course, was the
arranged.
This was the estranged Diana showing them, I'll go get myself a Muslim consort.
Her death is impossible to explain without some kind of...
And over 80% of the Brits on record and polls say they killed her. And she made a videotape and a diary and told her butler, Charles told me he's going to kill me in a fake auto accident, which is British and U.S. intelligence agencies' favorite way to kill you.
And, of course, Prince Charles is one possible factor. I think you'd also have to include Prince-Phillip.
And the reason people are going to say, well, why are you going into all the details? It could go on for hours, folks.
It's true.
Well, this is who we're being told is loving and good, but has no power. Now, let's get into their real power. Earlier, I read the Times of London. Islanders accuse Queen of illegal eviction from Diego Garcia the island. Now it turned into a giant U.S. refueling weapons base in the Indian Ocean. In the middle of the Indian Ocean, and they kicked out 3,000 of the tribes that's lived there for basically ever, and she just says that she's the queen. If she has no power, she gave the order. How does she suspend parliaments? What is her real power? What is her real position? Like the Dutch, her wealth is secret.
First of all, she is fabulously wealthy. I mean, she doesn't appear on these lists. When you see something that says, Warren Buffett or Bill Gates is the richest...
And they advertise her allowance in taxpayer money, the billions for heating the palaces and the rest of it, as if that's the only money.
She has a large fortune which does not appear because it is held through this...
They have the loot of 1,000 years.
I think it's called Coutts, C-O-U-T-S, is the bank that handles her personal finances. Anyway, there are trusts and other things that you don't see that she owns, right? It's rumored that she owns a good part of the real estate in Manhattan, right? That would already make her fabulously wealthy. She can dissolve Parliament anytime she wants. She can just send them all home. She has to appoint the person who tries to become prime minister. You want to try to form a government, you have to go through her. She has governor generals. The governors general. Let's go through the governors general. I think the most eloquent examples that I could cite were in 1975, you had this guy, Gow Whitlam in Australia, who was trying to set up an alternative energy supply for Australia. He was trying to make direct oil for technology deals with Middle East oil producers, a very good thing to do. And he was then ousted, and ousted by the actions of the Royal Governor General, because there was a conflict between two branches of Parliament. But now the reverse is happening. 3 times they try to kick out Harper. She comes in and dissolves so he can stay in. Right. We've had this repeatedly, and even before that, I think a very good example is under Mulroney, so-called Mal René among the Quebecois. Mulroney was the guy who brought you free trade, right? The giant sucking sound. in the form of NAFTA. There was a large opposition in the Canadian Senate. There was no majority for this NAFTA monstrosity, so the Queen obliged Mulroney by appointing new senators, packing the Canadian Senate so that there would be a majority for this free trade treaty, which I think everybody, including Canada, has suffered under. So the power of these governor generals is extensive. She gets these red boxes. All the top secret documents from the SIS, from MI5, MI6, the whole British intelligence establishment, like the Treasury. She gets these red boxes and she reads them. And the entire bureaucracy serves her. The entire loyalty, right? All the officers in the army are monarchists and royalists.
Well, she has patronages. They still hand out houses and lands and little goodies.
Right. We just had the Maundy gifts, right, where she gives a piece of gold for every year of her age to these poor commoners. Ultimately, what it inculcates is the sense of being a subject, in the sense of being an inferior person. In other words, there's a sovereign, that's her, and there's a subject, and that's you, and you're a subject to the whims of the sovereign. So it's a completely degraded system. It is a feudal relic. And of course, it's a terrible index of the degradation of the United States that people put up with this, right? And now you also look.
Well, stay there. I'm going to come back because they're really the big progenitors of the New World Order, eugenics, world population, Malthusian death cult.